Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Beth Ann, and I thought I would just pop in with a quick recent reads video. So the things that I wanted to talk about are the three books that I've read or finished most recently, I should say. And two of these I liked, and one of these I did not like. So I'll talk about all three of them. I'll start first with the two that I liked, which are both nonfiction. So the first of those that I finished is this one, The Electricity of Every Living Thing, A Woman's Walk in the Wild to Find Her Way Home by Katherine. And I read this for Margaret Pinard's book club, so I'll link to her channel down below. I assume if you follow me on YouTube, on BookTube, that you also follow Margaret and already know about her, but if not, her book club is lovely, just a very small group of people, and we read some really interesting stuff. So I actually missed the book club meeting about this one due to a family conflict, which I'm a little bit bummed about because, yeah, I thought it was a fantastic book. So this book is nonfiction, as I mentioned. It's a series of essays that are sort of standalone, but then they follow a little bit of a chronological journey. So Katherine wrote these essays over a period of time in her life when she was 38 and was realizing that she might be autistic and was going through thinking about how that might fit into her life and whether she wanted to pursue a professional diagnosis or not. She did end up getting on the wait list for an appointment. But as of the end of this book, that appointment had not happened yet. So in the course of sort of this personal journey of really grappling with this question of did she think she's autistic or not, she decided to walk now I'm going to mess it up, the Southwest Coast Path, which is a walking trail around the southwest part of England. So going out Cornwall and around through Devon, really beautiful part of the UK. So she wanted to walk the whole path. And so each essay starts with showing us the segment of the path that she was trying to walk at that time. And then the essay is sort of a reflection on her musings and on what she was thinking about and what was going on with her life at the time that she walked that part of the path. So she was not trying to walk it continuously. She was section hiking it, if that term is familiar to anybody. So she would, pick a weekend and identify the section of the path that she wanted to hike. Her husband and son would often go with her to sort of drop her off and shuttle her around from at the beginning and end of the section she was hiking. They would go off and play and entertain themselves and wait for her to finish her hike. So as someone who loves hiking and finds a lot of solace and clarity in nature, I really appreciated that part of it. And then I thought her writing was just absolutely beautiful. And so the essays were just these really powerful reflections on her life. And this is my new cat. This is Pookie, who's trying to get up. Pookie, do you want to say hi to the camera? This is Pookie. Say hi, Pookie. So she'll be exploring my lap apparently. Anyway, so just really lovely writing. And there were a lot of things that she was talking about that I sort of recognized in myself and related to because, a lot of what she was talking about was just the complete overwhelm of life as we sort of know it today. The overwhelm of having to balance all the different things that we have to balance and all the social expectations. But then because she is autistic, she was able to describe just how powerful and impactful and painful though that sense of overwhelming can be in particular situations, and how that can really impact her physically as well as mentally and emotionally. And so I just thought it was a really powerful way to just learn more about what that experience is as someone who's not autistic. I feel like I sort of learned about one person's experience of being autistic, and I think it is making me feel sort of more empathy and more willingness to sort of listen to and respond to what people say about their experience of the world, and how I can potentially like make that easier or sort of work with people on a day-to-day basis, because I do know and work with a lot of people who are neurodivergent or autistic. So anyway, I really loved this. It was just absolutely beautiful sort of memoir writing. The one thing about this was that there were a couple points where I was sort of expecting it to be a little bit more narrative in terms of sort of like chronology and like showing sort of the growth or development of this person as she went along, which was, I think, partly because the structure is a little hard to interpret because it is a collection of essays. Like they don't necessarily hang together. Like they're separate pieces of writing, but then there is this overall arch of she's walking the Southwest Coast path and sort of grappling with over like a year of her life, does this label autistic fit her or not, and is she going to pursue any sort of real diagnosis or medical diagnosis about it. And so it was like sort of in an in-between place where like I kept sort of expecting like character development basically, even though it's nonfiction. And so then she would, go from one essay to the next one, and there might be like sort of an abrupt shift in what she was thinking or feeling. And I was like, I need the middle filled in. This is not good plot development or like not good character development. And so then I had to step back mentally and be like, it's nonfiction, it's a collection of essays, calm down. So for me, it was a little hard mentally just to sort of balance almost like just a blending. Like I didn't go into it sort of expecting like a strict essay collection. And I think I would have not had those couple of moments of feeling like I was pulled out of it if I had been able to keep that in mind more. So just to throw that out there. Okay, the other book I finished recently that I loved is this behemoth. I mean, it's basically textbook size. It's called For Love of Insects by Thomas Eisner, who is one of the foremost entomologists of the 20th century. He passed away in 2011 and was born in 1929. And he invented essentially the field of chemical ecology, which is how organisms interact with other organisms and their environment, but through chemicals as the intermediaries. And so this book is essentially like his life story of his work, and it's beautiful storytelling. Like there's very little scientific jargon. He's just sort of taking like all these different examples of huge projects that often spanned entire decades or multiple decades, and he's just talking very simply about like what was the initial spark of curiosity that got him interested in that project, what was the next logical step, the next logical step, the next logical step. And so it's absolutely beautiful sort of like popular science storytelling, and just packed in so much knowledge about insects and the chemical ecology of insects. And so I read it because a good friend of mine, a former colleague, recommended it to me. I was thinking about what are like non-traditional textbook options that I could maybe incorporate in my own teaching. And so he suggested this. And so I am going to be using excerpts from it in the entomology course I'm teaching next semester. But that said, so I would only recommend like this whole book to people who absolutely love bugs because it's a heck of a lot of information about bugs. But it's the sort of thing where like it's going to be in university libraries. It might even be in the occasional like city library. I don't know, like for all the libraries of New York City, right? Maybe there's a copy floating around, but like it's just cool science storytelling. And so I would sort of recommend it as something to like dip in and out of, even if you're someone who doesn't have a super strong interest in insects, but is just interested in sort of natural history and the scientific process anyway. This was just absolutely lovely. Okay. And then finally, the book I didn't like, and I wanted to like it, is this one, Welcome Back, Alice by Shūzō Oshimi. I've been meaning to try out Shūzō Oshimi for a while because he does have a reputation of sort of taking socially taboo topics, particularly as they relate to sex and sexuality, and sort of exploring them and being honest about them. And so I'd been wanting to sort of try that. And this is, I think, a relatively new series by him, Welcome Back, Alice. I think there are a few volumes now, but this is volume 1. And the idea is that there are 3 friends who were sort of childhood friends, like Japanese equivalent of middle school, I think. So they sort of started middle school together and were friends. And so we see a bit of that set up in volume 1. But then one of the 3 friends, whose name is Kay, and I might not be pronouncing that correctly, but so Kay actually then disappears for like 3 years, comes back for high school, and Kay is presenting as a woman. And it appears in volume 1 that Kay is actually maybe more accurately non-binary because he's still using male pronouns, but is saying this reflects what I look like on the inside, or what I feel like I should look like. And so he's sort of presenting that way. And I wanted to like that because it's about high schoolers exploring their identity and exploring their sexuality. And so that's really powerful. And there definitely are parts of this that I like. So what we get is almost a little bit of a love triangle starting where the two childhood friends who stayed in the hometown, one of them has had a huge crush on the other one for a really, really long time. That other one has had a huge crush on Kay from when they were kids. And so then Kay disappears and comes back. And because Kay is presenting differently, it's sexually confusing for these youngsters who are dealing with hormones and everything. And so they're trying to figure it out. And so I think partly like in manga, like not that much gets accomplished in like a volume of this size, right? And so I'm on the fence about whether I'm going to continue or not, because I feel like it could still go in a good direction. But so far, all that we've had in this book is basically Kay coming back and acting like a sexual predator. Like, he is not communicating well at all with these two people that he knows there's this complicated history with. And he's being like very forward sexually in ways that make the other two characters like super uncomfortable. And so I'm like, stop, okay? Like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, so there's a little bit of that where it's like, you know, these other two characters really aren't comfortable with some of the things that Kay is like actually physically doing to them without asking them first. That I think is problematic. And then just the fact that like there's so little, like the story is not told from Kay's viewpoint. It's told from the viewpoint of one of these other kids who's just totally confused by this whole situation. And so all that we see is Kay being like sexually aggressive and sort of deliberately vague about who he is and what he wants from these two people. And so it's just like, to me, it's just such a stereotype of the over-sexualization of someone who's trans or gender nonconforming. And what I had wanted was just like, you know, a high school story about regular kids, one of whom is exploring their gender or is transgender, and is just being a regular kid. Like, that's sort of what I was expecting. And like, there could still be a lot of drama and angst around that. And there could be a lot of like the exploring the identity of this kid and exploring the identities of the other two kids that had previously had close relationships with him and exploring this potential love triangle. But it could all be done in a way that wasn't such an over-sexualized stereotype. And that's just, yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's falling into the stereotype of fetishizing a trans character, a trans person. And so I like, as I said, there were pieces that I liked about it. Like, I like seeing depictions of like high school kids exploring their sexuality and trying to figure out what's going on with their hormones and their emotions and everything, because it's really hard. And when I was in high school, like, I wished that I had had more books to read that would actually deal with that stuff honestly. But this, I guess, doesn't actually feel that honest to me, because this trans character feels like a caricature of what a regular person would be like, I guess. So yeah, as I said, it just feels like it's just falling into that stereotype of over-sexualization and fetishization. So if anyone else has read it and had a totally different opinion about it, I would really appreciate hearing it, because I don't know if I should continue with the series or not, because I was pretty annoyed and frustrated when I finished volume 1. So yeah, that's all I've got for today. Those were my 3 most recent reads, and hopefully I'll be back sooner rather than later with another video. Thanks. Bye.